What is something a high school teacher told you that you will never forget? My freshman year history teacher told us first day of school about how he went to college with Bill Gates. Said he was one of the people that Bill asked to invest in his startup. He had declined. And here I am, teaching history class to high schoolers. My ancient HS math teacher, who was from Arkansas, had a good deal of Walmart stock from I guess knowing one of the Waltons around its founding. From what I heard he's just been sitting on it this whole time. Well, if that's true, you can probably say with certainty he's teaching because he wants to and not because he needs to. Which hopefully should mean the quality of his teaching has gone up since he doesn't need to worry about keeping the lights on at home. Yeah, my mother occasionally tells the story about working at a bank and her coworker said that her brother Billy was starting a company that was going to put a computer in every home in America, and he was looking for people to invest $100 each into it. My mom had the money, but instead she decided to buy herself a nice dress. Oof. Class camp, we're out walking a trail to the next campsite, carrying our lives in our packs. I was not in great physical shape and was well back in the rear. So it's basically just me and one teacher to make sure no one fell too far back. We came to a part where a branch had fallen across the trail. Big enough to be an effort to move it, but not so large that it couldn't have been moved by any of the 30+ other students and teachers that had already walked around it. Without even thinking about it, I grabbed the branch and tossed it to the side of the path. The teacher said to me, 30 boys walked past that branch. It took one man to move it, and he made life easier for every person after him. It became a personal motto, of sorts, make it easier for the people who come after you. Although when you do a good job, the person who comes after you is usually also you. This is such a great metaphor and life lesson. I always do this if I am walking down the street or driving and see crap on the path or road that would be a hazard. You have no idea whether a parent with a pram, disabled person, blind person, or just rushing person is going to encounter it next on the path, or what the car behind you will encounter once you pass the hazard. Smooth their way. A teacher of mine said he would write me a letter of recommendation, but it had been a week or so and he hadn't gotten back to me yet. I went in a third time to remind him and I started off with an apology, to which he corrected me, saying don't ever stop advocating for yourself. It's advice I haven't forgotten since. That reminds me of the time in 9th grade chemistry that one of my classmates decided that the Bunsen burner wasn't on since he couldn't see the flame, so he stuck his homework paper over the burner to prove it. Good thing that the sink was right next to it, because it turns out that paper and a clear flame are unusually fond of one another. 2005 A teacher said intelligence of the future will not be defined by how well you know one skill but instead how well you can find information and decipher what information is good and bad. One of my high school teachers said the same thing. A smart person doesn't always know the answer to the question, but he knows where to find it or something along those lines. That's honestly true about a lot of fields. Take physics for example. Ask a physics question and even the most intelligent physicist likely won't know the answer immediately, but they'll know exactly what books to consult and what formulas to use to find the answer. Same with medicine. A doctor may not remember literally every single drug, but they are more than capable of knowing exactly where to look for the right information and having complete trust in the sources they use. I had an English teacher my freshman year of high school who was one of the rare adults that treated all of his students with respect while at the same time challenging us to do better. I distinctly remember him telling our class, "You are not as mature as you think you are, but you are more mature than your parents give you credit for." He also told us about an agreement/rule he had with his own kids. He understood how hard it was for kids to do the right thing in the face of peer pressure. So he had told his kids that if they were ever in a situation, underage drinking, drugs, whatever, where they knew they shouldn't be, they could call in using an previously agreed upon code word that was banal and unsuspicious. He would know he needed to go get them and be the bad guy. He would show up, Uncle Buck style, and get them out of wherever they were. This would allow them to save face with their friends and there would be no consequences for being the situation in the first place. He also told us about an agreement/rule he had with his own kids. He understood how hard it was for kids to do the right thing in the face of peer pressure. My parents had two parts to this. The first was that my dad was always willing to be the bad guy. We could always blame him for not being able to do something we didn't want to do. The second was that no matter what, if we ever felt uncomfortable, we could call them at any point of the night and ask to be taken home. There would be no punishment, even if it was a situation where we'd done something like sneaking out to go to a party we actually were told not to go to. As they said, roughly, we'd rather be silently disappointed in you and really tired on a workday, than have to attend your funeral. Sounds like a true gem of a teacher. Came here to also recall an English teacher that was really just one of us with much more experience and knowledge. There were so many great things he taught us, but one that sticks out at the moment was, don't believe anything you hear and only half of what you read. I don't know where I heard that from, wasn't a teacher, but I heard something similar too. The person told their kid that if they're ever that drunk, probably counts for other drugs too, that they'll pick them up no matter what and no questions asked, so they never end up wailing home drunk as fuck and end up killing themselves on accident. As someone going to school to become a teacher, this mindset is becoming more common among teachers. Teachers observe how students prefer to learn and incorporate those aspects into the curriculum. Obviously there are still teachers who don't care about the learning needs of their students, but as time goes on more and more teachers will embrace lessons that promote critical thinking. My high school biology teacher, on the end of every quiz or exam, would put a giveaway point question. The question was always the same: science is A, exciting, B, interesting, C, a challenge, D, all of the above. No matter which you marked, you got the point. However, since this was on every exam, the saying was sandblasted into my long-term memory. This led to me always somehow muttering this whenever I was taking an exam in university, substituting the word science with whatever necessary. Then it led to me muttering it whenever I was dealing with something stressful. Now it has become a fallback whenever I run into a life roadblock and everything is simply designated A, exciting, B, interesting, C, a challenge, D, all of the above. It's simple, but it helps keep me from being too negative. Leave your verbal guns at the door. This was the HS football coach's first words teaching sex ed at my high school. He used the metaphor of the old American West where cowboys would leave their guns at the door when they entered a saloon to drink so nobody would get killed in a drunken outburst. He said we'd talk about a lot of topics that might make us feel uncomfortable and tempted to make a joke at someone else's expense to break the tension. He asked us to leave our verbal guns at the door so everyone could feel comfortable asking honest questions. This was back in the late 80s. He was way ahead of his time. I'll go ahead and be the only teacher responding to this question. I wasn't there, but when you set kids up like this it usually works. Nobody actually wants to be the jerk that gets the conversation shut down when an adult crosses the taboo and is finally willing to talk to them honestly about sex and answer those questions that have been burning in the backs of their minds. The one time I had to start to shut down a class conversation about sex because of behavior, the kids yelled at the kid who was acting out and said, No, Mrs. Wardrobe. We're being so mature. We're being so mature. We can do this. Shut up, Johnny. And we were able to continue on. Kids are better than they seem when you're a kid. I faked my way through 4th and 5th grade math. I never understood how to do long division, but managed to hide that from the teachers and answer test questions by reverse multiplication, basically guess a number and multiply it out and see how close I would get, and keep doing it until I got the answer. My 6th grade math teacher figured out that I was faking, and had no idea how to actually divide anything. She had me come in one afternoon to help with cleaning the erasers. All the kids fought for this privilege, so I was thrilled, sat me down and tutored me until I grasped the concept. Bless you, Mrs. Gillespie. Something about being trusted with the responsibility, encouraged to do something that made a bit of a mess, clouds of chalk dust, the satisfaction of hitting two soft things together. It was similar to being asked to come to the board to write something in chalk. The tactile experience was fun and special in a way that felt less like a chore and more like play. You would have loved partial quotient division. It's the new math of division. Basically, you do what you did. Pick a number, multiply it, and subtract it from your original number. Then you keep going if you have any remainders. Pick a new number, multiply it by the divisor and subtract it from the divided number. Add up all the numbers you picked and that's your answer. The reason we teach this as an option is because these partial quotients make more math sense than long division. Long division is just an algorithm you follow until you get the number. Partial quotient division builds better numeracy, or that's the theory anyway. Struggled with dyslexia and a learning disability my whole life. English class was hell for me every year. Senior year, my lit teacher read some short story that was required of me and said, "What the fuck are you doing here? You are starting in my AP lit class starting tomorrow." I passed the AP test and my entire life really began because he believed in me. I'm now a high school teacher, and while not as great as him, really think I'm doing good work. I struggled in math so badly. Officially, I passed it, but the reality was that no matter how hard I tried, I could not do it. However, I was in AP English. Turns out, I have a form of dyslexia. Wish I had known that 40 years ago. In my childhood, only one person ever tackled my mother about her abuse of me and my siblings. It was Parents' Day and my bitch of a mother, as usual, turned up to take the credit for my being top of the class again. At one point there was just me, my bitch of a mother, and Mrs. Soames, physics teacher, in the lab. Mrs. Soames quite calmly challenged her, saying, "Mrs. XXXXX, why do you treat Tom's daughter the way you do? She's a good girl and doesn't deserve it." To my astonishment, my evil bitch of a mother was speechless. No one had ever confronted her before and she just didn't know where to put herself. It was easy for the other teachers and pupils to make snide, patronizing remarks about this cow to me. A 13-year-old girl isn't in a position to do anything about it, and I'm guessing they were trying to ease their consciences about the fact that they were too cowardly to intervene. But Mrs. Soames has been a role model for me ever since, and an unforgettable example of those people brave enough to tackle a bully in the presence of their victim. To have someone stand by you when you are vulnerable, and make their support for you clear, I can't tell you how that changed my view of other people.